I'm a vindictive bastard. Not all the time, of course. You don't get to run a convenience store chain without some degree of sympathy. In fact, if you met me, that's the first thing you'd notice. I'm extremely personable. But don't betray me. I will get even with you. Not revenge. Revenge. Okay, you want examples. I played rugby and still do from time to time. I was a lock, one of the second row forwards, tall, well placed, and pretty quick on my feet. So I was chasing a high ball, and a damn number one hit me as I was jumping for the ball, and I went down hard, shattering my shoulder and suffering a slight concussion. The referee ruled it was accidental. The trainer replaced me while my shoulder healed and the team doctor released me. I went back on the field and the bastard smiled at me. The stupid man confirmed it was a deliberate foul, so at the next scrum I carded him. I wasn't sure if it was my fist that hit him and the ref didn't see it, but that was just for starters. Luck favored the brave. Their number one got hold of the ball and went on a clumsy run. He was brought down and the ruck was set up, but he gave the ball back to his scrum half. He was taking his time to organize his backs and I saw an opportunity. I pounced underneath my counterpart in the ruck, knocking him off balance and sending him into the number 8, who landed on the loosehead's arm. Unfortunately for him, he had his hand on top of the ball and the weight of the two boys broke his forearm. I got up with cleat marks on my face and neck, where a boot had hit me, and with my shoulder again bandaged. None of the referees saw anything unusual, and as they were helping their number one out, they stared at me. Since I was receiving treatment at the time, he couldn't know if I had had anything to do with his injury, but I knew, and that was enough. I'm not stupid enough to get into a vendetta. Well, that time I was lucky. The opportunity arose, and the result was better than I expected. I had thought they would land on him and slow him down, so I could finish him off later, but you get my drift. Bang me, and I'll bang you back. Keeping the accounts of the stores gives me a pretty good idea of what is sold and when, and what money needs to go through the accounts. I'm also pretty quick to spot irregularities at the cash register. Most of my employees are wives, single mothers, and students. They are not people who have a lot of income. So, to eliminate temptation as much as possible, they get a huge discount. They can also have expired food, with the condition that it is for their exclusive use. Basically, I try to make it not worth their while to shoplift. The salary is better than average because the stores are profitable, but the perks make their money go further. So, when I saw that my wife was taking a lot of money out of the joint account, I sat down and took note. I make a good living with the stores, so I have no problem with my wife spending money. I don't believe in credit cards, so she uses the debit card, rarely cash. Two other things you should know about me. Despite what the incident on the rugby field may look like, I plan things well. On the field, you take the ball and read the game. Seconds make the difference between scoring or not. Real life is different. That's why I bought the stores that would make me money, not the ones across the road or a few hundred yards away. The other thing is that I loved my wife with all my heart. I needed to know what she was doing with the money before I came to the conclusion that the bitch was doing her own thing. Okay, I know I was already there, but that's part of the vindictive aspect of my character. I assume the worst. Luckily, my rational side is also strong. I might just have a gambling addiction, or I might just be using weed. For all I know, I could be saving up to buy myself a nice gift, or to get ready to run away. How the hell would I play this game? All my stores have CCTV and security systems linked to a computer system. Some of the cameras above the checkouts are almost invisible if you don't know they're there. But did I want them bugging my house? I thought I'd better wait until she was out of the house and check it out myself, get something to work on. The stores pretty much took care of themselves, and I also had office work well taken care of, so I took a little time to myself to think about my next move. I strolled down the main street and entered the phone store. I love gadgets. They were promoting a program to download all the phone numbers from the SIM card to the computer and not lose them. It gave me an idea to get started. It would download everything from our phones to the computer, and then I could look up their numbers. That afternoon, I loaded the software. Sharon, give me your phone. What for? I have a new program that saves all the numbers so that if your phone fails, you can reload them from the computer to a new phone. It saves you having to get everyone's numbers and dial them. Doubt. I think my battery is flat. No problem. It connects via USB, so it's powered by the computer. This shows how useful this tool can be. If it had been a faulty battery or something, it could have corrupted the data. Reluctantly, he handed me his phone. I created a folder for his data and downloaded it directly to the machine. Okay, it's in a folder in My Documents called Phone Numbers, in your name in case you need it. Is there a password? No, go straight to him if you need to. I went on the internet and started looking for classic cars. I fancied an E-Type if I could find one. At the end, Sharon had an overload of soaps and went to make herself a cup of tea. I quickly copied her file and emailed it to myself at work. Normally, I didn't bother to check Sharon's phone bill. It was paid by direct debit. However, things were different. I pulled the folder out of my desk drawer and took it to work. First, I checked her phone numbers. Strangely, I recognized my problem as soon as I saw Steve Riley's name. A quick check of the phone records showed me that she phoned him a couple of times a day. Steve Riley was not only a competitor, but also a soccer player. For me, as a rugby player, that was probably worse. Now I needed confirmation that they were having an affair and using my money to pay for it. I saw no other option but to hire a private investigator. I would have no problem taking time off work, but I'm a big bugger and would stick out like a sore thumb trying to follow either of them. I looked in the yellow pages and got a company in a town 10 miles away. I could have had it from the company that did my security work for me, but they were the best in town and I figured Riley would use them for his stores as well. I didn't want to hire someone with a conflict of interest. I made an appointment and took a couple of photos of Sharon with me. The private investigator was an ex-cop who seemed quite prosperous, judging by his premises. Either that, or a git flash, a bluff in his own way. In any case, all I needed was evidence of unpleasantness, so I didn't need to be Sherlock Holmes. He told me a week would cover what he wanted, and I gave him £1,000 as a down payment. As I was driving, I realized I needed gas and stopped at a small gas station. As I was filling up the engine tank, I looked around and my instinct told me I was looking at an untapped gold mine. I went in to pay and realized it was a husband and wife business. They were in their 60s, and I got talking to them. In short, they wanted to retire but hadn't done anything about it. I asked them the price. I knew it was £250,000 below their potential and told them to ask for an appraisal. I gave them my card. Look, I may be a businessman, but I have to look in the mirror every morning. I may get revenge, but I don't take advantage of people and I don't cheat. Much. A week later, I received 2 calls. One was an apology from Mr. and Mrs. Flanagan, saying that they had been told the business was worth about what I thought it was. They were flabbergasted when I accepted the price and asked for their lawyer's details. The second was, of course, my private investigator telling me that Sharon was playing games, but not just with Steve Riley. She had arranged to meet another man for lunch and then Steve in the evening when I was training. I told the private investigator to get me more details. I drove over there to give the PI another 1,000 and take a look at my new acquisition. The investigator had pictures of Sharon with Steve and the other guy in public, but hadn't gotten anything sexual. I gave him the second installment and told him to get something that could prove infidelity in court, and an identity for the second guy. I sat around for another week, fulfilling husband duties in the bedroom. Hey, a shag is a shag, and you get it when you can. Sharon didn't seem unusually reticent, nor unusually eager. However, oral sex was out of the question. Not that it was unusual during the week. I wasn't worried about STDs, since we used condoms. Sharon was not on the pill because it made her gain weight. The following Friday, I got what I needed. Relative number 2 was a guy named Jim Leonard, a sales rep for a company that sold those packaged products you see in corner stores and stores like mine. You know the kind of stuff. Sewing kits, those little rolls of duct tape, electrical fuses. That kind of stuff. They used her apartment twice that week. Steve Riley and she got a little action in the parking lot while I was training. I had enough to know that my marriage was over. I figured she would be on the rag shortly, so her activity would dry up for a week. I put the first part of the plan into action. I got some chili peppers at the store and extracted chili juice. I smeared the crotch of a few pairs of her panties. The big ones, the ones at the bottom of the drawer, the ones she would probably wear soon. I also took a hypodermic and injected her with some tampons. I had heard that some guys used wintergreen as a joke, but I thought she might smell it. I had no idea if it would work, but it seemed reasonable. Riley played a little indoor soccer at the local recreation center, where I also played sometimes, just to keep in shape. Naturally, I was chastised for my lack of ball skills, but I more than made up for it with speed and stamina. Usually someone would be named goalie, and the position would rotate so that everyone got a good workout. My rugby skills gave me a distinct advantage in goal. Riley thought he could get around me with the ball, and he did. While I was goalie, he was getting close, but he couldn't get around me. He stuck his boot in once or twice and I pointed it out to him, but he just laughed. Then they scored, and we changed goalkeepers. He made the mistake of trying to provoke me, so when he tried to take the ball away from me, he kept coming closer. I was a bit loose with my feet, and I hit him on the ankle, but not too hard. Then, when he had the ball, I inadvertently hit him, and he fell on his butt. I, of course, apologized, made the excuse of not being able to read a 5-game due to speed, and helped him to his feet. Riley wasn't very nice, but the rest of the guys took my side. In the next game, Riley made a hard tackle to try to take me out. I saw it coming and let him go in before trying to clear the ball. As his foot came down where my ankle should have been, his knee managed to collide with my boot. The happy sound of his knee trying to bend the other way rewarded me. Our combined momentum tore the cartilage and ligaments of the joint. She fell to the ground screaming like a little girl. I apologized profusely again. But the others had no sympathy for it. They had seen how he tried to break my ankle and let him know that he had no one to blame but himself. We got him an ambulance. I offered to drive him home. It was the least I could do under the circumstances. He, of course, refused. By now, Sharon had already put on her panties and tampons. Clearly, the chili juice was having some effect. She was, shall we say, a little uncomfortable. She suffered for a day or two before going to the doctor. Naturally, the doctor had no idea of the real cause, but gave her some cream which she hid in her purse. She hadn't fixed all her tampons, otherwise she might have made an association when her period was over. When I came back from soccer, I was sitting on the couch looking like thunder. "You bastard! Who is she?" "Huh? You've given me a dose of syphilis. Who is she? I'll take you to the cleaners. I'll get every penny you've got." It wasn't me. It must have been Steve Riley or Jim Leonard. "What, you know?" he cooed. I opened my briefcase and handed him a copy of the private investigator's report. "Pack your things and get the hell out of my house." "Where am I going to go?" he lamented. "Screw me if I know, but if you gave me a dose, then you're going to screw me." I was really pissed off. As I mentioned before, she didn't use the pill in case she got fat, so we used condoms for birth control. If she had a dose, she'd be shagging the rest of us with her bare hands. She's the one who deserves it. I grabbed the roll of garbage bags from the kitchen and went upstairs to the bedroom. "I'll give you a hand packing," I gulped, and started emptying crates into the bags. I didn't worry about what went in and just dumped it all on top of everything else. I loaded all her stuff into the car, took her keys, took the house key off the key fob, and screwed her in the high port. I closed the door behind her in a boiling fury, grabbed a beer, and threw myself into the recliner. I knew about her infidelity, but confronting her so blatantly set off the pressure cooker. I felt as if my heart had been ripped from my chest. I drank myself into oblivion. The next morning, I woke up with the rest of my life. Surprisingly, my hangover was quite mild. I attribute it to my physical fitness. I went to work rather dejected. I cleared up routine matters and made an appointment with my lawyer. Then I closed my office door and analyzed my options. Oddly, I felt no urge to retaliate against Sharon, Riley, or Leonard. I felt completely discouraged. However, my employees noticed my state of mind and sent Big Jean to interrogate me. Jean was in her mid-50s and was the store's agony aunt. She had seen just about everything and was one of those motherly women who can't take shit. She sat across from me and waited. Okay. Sharon's been acting up and I've kicked her out, and that's it. I'm not going to do anything stupid, so you don't have to worry. Maybe not now, but I know you. I give you some time to get over it and you do something that will land you in jail. Who have you been seeing? Steve Riley and a guy named Leonard. Oh, damn. You're not going to crack skulls, are you? I laughed. I actually broke Riley's knee last night. Oh, Christ, are the police involved? No, I laughed again. We collided in a tackle, playing indoor soccer last night, and he came out worse for wear. He looked at me disapprovingly. Boss, you have a lot of people depending on you. On top of that, they like working for you. It's about time you grew up a little. You don't need to prove yourself all the time anymore. Shit. All the people come to your stores because they know you're honest. And they know you'll help them if their backs are against the wall. Riley only gets the business because you give him room to trade. This vindictive streak you have goes totally against the rest of your character. I looked at her slightly surprised. It was his turn to laugh. Everyone knows you play fair, but if you get betrayed, you more than get even. Why do you think you have so little trouble? Now get your act together. Stop looking for revenge and start getting a life. The business will take care of itself now. It's time for you to enjoy what you've built. This is a good time to change your perspective. There will be women lining up for you now that you are back on the market. I'd be beating them if I were a few years younger. If it weren't for your Bert, I let the innuendo hang in the air. Jean was a beautiful woman. You dirty bastard, she blushed. I'm old enough to be your mother. You started it. When Jean left, I knew she was right. I had spent my life building a business, but feeling I had to prove myself all the time. It was time to grow up. Even my rugby was trying to prove itself to me. Sitting there, I took stock of my life and made the most important decision of my life. It was time to put away the kid stuff. So there you have it. That's what changed my life. I felt the whole need to get my own back drained from me there and then. My business has gotten to a point where it's as big as I want it to be. I can comfortably manage it myself and still maintain personal contact with my staff. But I have started to expand my social life. I still play rugby, but more for fitness. I enjoy it more now. I've learned to dance and I've joined a hiking group. I spend much of the summer walking around Europe and have met many very agile women. The fresh air and beautiful scenery seem to be quite conducive to establishing international relationships. I guess before you go, you'll want to know what I did to my ex-wife and her lovers. Well, Sharon didn't come out of the divorce as well as I thought she would. I had done the decent thing with the Flanagans, giving them a market price for their business, but I had had to mortgage mine to buy them out and rebuild the gas station. It cost a bloody fortune to get the old fuel tanks out. So when the divorce came through, I had a mountain of debt, according to my accountant. Since we had only been married 5 years and had no children, my lawyer negotiated a separation agreement based on my net worth. She kept the house, but had to assume the mortgage. She had to go back to work and had a hard time keeping up with the payments. She put herself up for sale and dropped off the face of the earth as far as I know. He probably hooked up with some other sucker. I never knew why he went with Riley. Speaking of him, his leg didn't heal too well, and he now uses a cane. Not only is his soccer career over, but it is now shaped like a soccer. Unfortunately for him, his car was stolen that night outside the recreation center. His laptop and briefcase were stolen. It is said that a lot of money was also stolen from him, but he did not report it to the police. Between his slow recovery and the loss of the laptop, he had to put a couple of stores up for sale. I thought it was only fair to help him out a little, since I was partly responsible for the injury, so I bought his 2 best tents. He was getting by on what he had left until the police recovered the laptop and some documents. Now I buy everything from him, to help him pay the IRS. Jim Leonard had been supplying many stores with these miscellaneous pieces. Not mine, though. Somehow, word got out that he was banging Sharon. Apparently, she wasn't the only wife he was pimping, and someone else found out. He got beat up pretty good, but the police had too many suspects. They never managed to arrest anyone. Karma can be a bitch. And for the record, it wasn't me. I was giving a vertical expression of a horizontal wish that night, followed by responding to that horizontal wish. Mind you, Jean didn't seem surprised when she heard the news. Maybe I've grown up. A little.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn, Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.